blocking their estrogen too with these, AIs, aromatase inhibitors. And they would say that like at a certain level of testosterone with an AI, they would feel their brain like literally was being compressed. It was like in one of those like, conveyors where they were like squishing their brain. And there was always negative side effects from taking them. So it's like, once Neil started looking at the research and when I first started using therapeutic testosterone, which is now going back 24 years, everybody was on an AI. I mean, the prevailing research was, again, we wanted to keep that estrogen in that range that the magical standard mean deviations would give us, which was, as you said, I think 18 to 42 or something like that. Now that's moving around. But at the end of the day, everybody thought you had to keep your estrogen lower and your testosterone higher. And so everybody was on some form of an AI. And I remember one of the doctors, I've worked with a lot of them, but Dr. Brett Osborne, he wanted to put me on like a suicide AI, which was letrozole, because he wanted to get my estrogen when I had gynecomastia. This is way back. This is going back into 2014. But, and even then, the top gyno surgeons in the world didn't know that gynecomastia was a polymorphism. It was a SNP. It was a codon. We now know that men that get gynecomastia, real gynecomastia, have a gene for it. I have that gene. I've had both of my nipples surgically excised, and I've never had a gyno problem ever since. It was the greatest decision I've ever made. But at the end of the day, as science and medicine has expanded its knowledge of testosterone optimization therapy, we've realized that higher estrogen levels confer the most protection to biological system functioning and confer the most sexual benefit. Now, I've had just for, the record for everybody here, because I'm very authentic about this, I've had my estrogen levels as high as 115. And now I keep my estrogen levels. And I don't know if I say I keep, it's more about like, I'm just more acclimated because I've been off AIs for a long time now, but my estradiol rarely goes above 75 now. But in a lot of studies, and again, a lot of these studies are in women, the minimum protective effect for vascular networks is like 70, right? But in the literature, and especially in most hormone optimization physicians, I think you guys see this. You see a person with 50 or 60 estradiol, a man, and it's instant, oh my God, you're too high. And so now we have to suppress. And now we have to put them on an AI. And now it even gets dumber and dumber, because now it's like, we're looking at their levels, and obviously we know this is a whole other conversation, but we now know that they're even compressing the high ends of the ranges, right? The lower end is going lower and the higher is going down. I just saw a LabCorp report 2 days ago, and they showed high was like 725 total testosterone. And I'm like, what? But again, that's a whole other conversation.
The only time we actually look at those things are when we got somebody calling up and saying, "Oh, right, I'm outside of the range," And
right. No, I mean, right. I mean, for us, this is like a simple thing, but obviously in the main world where, people aren't working with people like us, their doctors don't understand. And obviously the numbers are coming down. But back to your original question, like when I was on the AI, way back when, which is, again, I think I came off AI for good in 2016. I would always struggle to lose body fat in the lower abdominal region. I would always have like, not a pooch, but just too much fat there. And I could never understand it. And then started talking to Keith, Neil and Keith, and they were like, no, dude, the AI, even in a minimal dose, right? You remember the great late Dr. John Chrysler, just a little bit, was actually inhibiting fat loss. And Neil pointed all this stuff out, from the clinical literature that showed that, AIs were doing all sorts of weird things and, screwing up insulin sensitivity. And it was making that last, bit of fat loss much tougher to lose. So, all in all, at the end of the day, I don't see a need ever for estrogen to be controlled outside of the realm of like, somebody has a rare form of cancer. But when we're doing hormone optimization of both men and women, I mean, estrogen should be allowed to fall to the natural level. We all, code for a specific level of estrogen. And again, in the absence of symptoms or side effects, there's never.
How do you explain? And I've done it over and over and over again. The guy comes in and is, before we even see him, his testosterone is 318 and his estrogen 75.
Right.
We bring the testosterone up into the 7 to 900, and I drop the estrogen into the 30s and 40s, and all of a sudden now he feels great. Now he's losing weight. Now he's doing well. We let the estrogen fall up into the 70s and 80s again, and now he's feeling like a slug again, and nothing's working.
I mean, it just depends. Well, I mean, it depends on that person, and usually, so there's a lot of things. There's a lot of factors here, but usually when the testosterone rises and they feel better, and the estrogen drops down and then it comes back up again, it's usually something to do with insulin resistance. I mean, it's 90 to 95%, and I see this a lot of times with men. If you have excess belly fat, it's like center adiposity, and you're injecting testosterone into the belly fat, which a lot of people do now, subcutaneous administration with very small insulin syringes, that's causing an inflammatory response. And a lot of doctors and / people in this space do not really see that, or have not really seen that. And that inflammatory response is causing insulin resistance in that area, and is going to spike side effects or symptomology that is normally, again, associated with high estrogen, which we know isn't really a thing. There really is no high estrogen symptoms. It's just insulin resistance and inflammation, and usually caused by visceral body fat. So I see a lot of guys who have too much belly fat, and they're the ones that will see that rise of the estradiol level, and it's usually okay because it's more of the inflammation and the visceral body fat that's actually causing the symptomology of them not feeling as well. And so, like,
so let's
get rid of the belly fat.
Let's make sure that there is two kind of estrogen.
What levels do you like?
And estradiol
for the testosterone.
And we need
does
to
it
know
depend on the age and the activity of the man?
Can you hear me, guys?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Right,
So who's talking? I can't see who's talking.
Joel Peterson with the beard.
No, I know you are. Somebody else is.
Oh, I didn't know.
Dr. Alas was talking.
Let me make clear here when we talk about estrogens, right?
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me? Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Somebody's talking over, so
go ahead, Joe.
Don't talk. The other guy, I'm listening. Go ahead.
All right,
Joe,
Dr.
you want to go ahead?
You go first. Go ahead.
Okay. So we need to know the difference between there is two types of estrogens. Actually, there's three, but the other third, which is estriol, that's for pregnancy women. Let's forget about.
Right.
Let's talk about estradiol and estrones. I have no problem with estradiol level at all. Okay, estradiol is healthy. It's anti-inflammatory.
Right. Exactly.
It works on the E2. No problem with this with the estradiol. Okay, although high estradiol can convert to estrones, and estrones are the bad guys, the one that cause inflammation, the one that cause oxidative stress, and the one that cause metabolic syndrome. So even you are confirming it by saying if you inject testosterone into fat tissue, it become inflamed. Yes, because those fat tissue will convert testosterone into estrones, and the estrones is the trouble. Now, I don't recommend giving anastrozole as a first line management here. I will definitely do progesterone because progesterone does inhibit the aromatase naturally and does not have any side effects, and also it counteracts the oxidative stress and proliferative effect of the estrones. Keeping that estradiol is very important and critical because it increases the high density lipoprotein. So high estradiol is not a big deal, but where is the problem is estrones. So when you're doing your lab, if you come up with estrones and you start measuring it, then we can definitely come up with better vision of what's going on here. And I don't recommend anastrozole as a first line treatment. I will do testosterone and progesterone because progesterone is it's the one of the executive molecule. It's just below prognolone, and either they will convert to cortisone or they will convert to sex hormone. It really based on if you have estrone dominant syndrome, which is excess of estrones. Estrones do feed the conversion of steroids to cortisone, and you end up with estrone cortisone dominancy, and that's why all this dieting that you're doing is not working, because estrone is inflammatory and the cortisone is actually also causing atrophy and fat deposition and fat resistance to be breaking down. So I think I'm with you in all what you're saying about testosterone helps in metabolic syndrome and help to build the muscle and good for the guys, not for the women. It's very high. You don't want that. That's why the transgenders are getting sick from metabolic syndrome. But I'm
That's
talking
a whole
about
other
giving the
topic.
testosterone for the guys are good as long as you don't have estrogen dominant syndrome and as long as you're adding progesterone.
So, I mean, everything you're saying, I don't disagree with. I think it goes back to the root issue, though. The root issue is the too high of visceral body fat, which is leading to the inflammation, which is causing the estrone creation. I'm sorry.
He gets converted to adenosine.
I'm sorry. Cut out. So whoever spoke cut out. What did you say?
All right, whoever said that, we couldn't hear it.
Yeah, it got cut out. But I mean, I'm somewhat in agreement with him. I mean, that's a very advanced explanation of, what's happening with the three different forms of estradiol, estrone being converted. But again, it's a process that's due to high levels of visceral body fat, usually center adiposity, again, right around the belly button.
Mm-hmm.
And inflammation. And as he said it, and I said it exactly, a lot of those men are injecting testosterone right into the belly. So, obviously live insulin controlled, lose body fat, resistance train, do all the things that we know they have to start doing. But another thing that they could do is also not inject into the belly, that inject into the gluteal, the high outer gluteal fat pad of the buttocks,
Mm-hmm.
Or even IM in the shoulders or in different locations. But that is happening. And again, his explanation of it, I think, is correct.
Would you recommend measuring estrone levels?
I personally wouldn't. I mean, I think I'm not saying that there isn't an issue. There's a book that just came out from Dr. Rand McClain in California, who's essentially my mortal enemy because he's pro AI with a lot of his patients and stuff like that. And we've taken a lot of his patients away that have been really in bad condition because he keeps them below the standard deviation. And, that's how he monitors his patients. And a lot of those guys feel horrible. But, he talks about that too. He just did a video about that. I can't remember who it was. And we did a doctor's roundtable podcast on that video. We broke it down and we showed, where his evidence is incorrect or flawed, which I would be happy to send you guys a video on that. But we went really, really deep on that. So the consensus from the doctors and myself was that in a very rare circumstance, would you measure for estrogens? That would have to be in a very rare situation. So I'm not saying what the other doctor just said isn't correct, because it probably is, but by and large, most people are not going to need that. It's just about controlling their habits, changing their lifestyle, living insulin controlled, getting rid of the inflammation and the.
What about that progesterone for men?
Not a believer in progesterone for men. Not to say that there's not benefit with it. It's like getting back to the conversation with estradiol. I mean, look, I personally think that every man who's been, I call it quacked, and has had their estradiol driven to the floor for a long time with an AI, I think they should be immediately, obviously, withdraw from the AI and be given estradiol in a very small, very surgically precise dose, a half a 1 milligram tab, a 1 milligram tab, or even a 1 milligram every third day or something like that. Because again, most people, myself included, are going to feel better with levels of estradiol between, again, and this is people on therapeutic hormones, somewhere between 35 and 80. That's where most people feel really good. Now, I've seen men who have 130 and 140 estradiol level and feel absolutely amazing, and have no symptoms or side effects. They're lean. Again, I personally think that being lean is the biggest problem solver, even when someone is hormonally optimized. And that's why, not to rabbit hole, but that's why using a GH agonist peptide or even human growth hormone, concomitantly with hormones or optimizing hormones is always going to be the best bet, because you're going to get that double-edged sword, improving natural growth hormone or, exogenous growth hormone to enhance fat loss. It's always, I talk about this all the time. Like, the person will live, the people who live the longest are the leanest. Like, all cause focus on that. Again, all these 100-year-old blue zone octogenarian folks, they're always lean. They're always thin. They may be brittle. They may not be doing enough bone, bone density training, but they're always lean. And so it's like when you really understand the inflammatory cascade and that process, and then of course what causes inflammation, which is usually visceral body fat, organ fat, you don't have these issues. So like if you're going to be on hormonal optimization, I'm always going to say, are you doing everything else right? It's not a panacea. And I think too many people look at it as a panacea. They don't change their diet. They don't change their lifestyle, and they just take hormones, and they have these same issues and effects that, it's caused by the injecting of the hormones. You're just injecting another chemical, into a inflamed fat mass.
Okay.
Let me just add something here, which is confirming what you're just saying. We have a problem with fat tissue because fat is full of aromatase enzymes, and they will convert the testosterone into estrogens. And estrone, not estradiol, estrogens is the inflammatory agent that causes metabolic syndrome. Not just that, estrogens is carcinogenic because it causes proliferation, and it can lead to prostatic cancer, endometrial cancer, and even colon cancer. So the idea is to definitely reduce the fat, and we develop a diet capsule for that, which is acarbose and metformin and all the good stuff. And also, you need to give progesterone to inhibit the conversion of testosterone into estrogens. I'm not talking about estradiol. Even estradiol, if you give them too much and you have too fat, the fat will convert estradiol to estrogens. So you need to remove fat, and you still need to give progesterone, because progesterone will also antagonize the oxidative stress and the proliferative, the carcinogenic effect of excess of estrogens. I'm not talking about normal level of estrogens. I'm talking about excess. And the best way of doing it is just measure the ratio between progesterone and estrogens or estrogen, and also the ratio between testosterone and estrogen. And it has to be optimal ratio, because it's more important, the ratio, than the range itself. And Dr. William Bell is very, one of the in other words, one of the pioneers in giving those ratios. But I understand all you're saying, but if you recommend people to just take testosterone by itself, you put them at risk of having prostate cancer.
That's completely false.
Not from the testosterone.
False.
Wait.
False.
From the estrogens, not from testosterone.
No, it's still not true. Just go look at all the research from Dr. Abraham Morgan Taylor. That's completely false. That's been thrown out. There's no estrogens causing prostate cancer.
No.
We presented all that many times already. Yeah,
that's completely false.
Okay, let me confirm it. Let me add something. I'm not saying testosterone itself causes prostate cancer.
False.
I'm not saying prostate cancer. I'm not saying testosterone causes prostate cancer. I'm saying estrogens, which is the byproducts of conversion of testosterone into estrogens, is causing prostate cancer, is causing endometrial cancer, is causing breast cancers. Is the excess of estrogen.
You've got to know which estrone, which metabolite of estrone is genetically being driven.
Right.
And it can be driven by poor methylation SNPs and going down the.
So is he still talking, or can I throw this?
No, you're good. You're good. There's somebody else talking now, but it's not him. But
yeah, it was Dr. Kent.
Dr. Ken, keep going. Keep going.
Go ahead, Kent.
So there's pathways that can deal properly with estrone and improperly with estrone, and the end byproduct of the improperly metabolized estrone will damage DNA, and that's where the cancer risk comes up. So you have to know whether you've got the SNPs, COMET, and others.
I was just going to say that's why genetic
absolutely necessary today, because we can measure the damn thing now.
I've been saying this for 5 years. I've been saying that every big medical clinic that prescribes hormones should get Dr. Anthony J in there, and they should set up a protocol where every single patient is evaluated for SNPs for polymorphisms and for everything that could go wrong genetically before you start personal hormones. I'm 100% agreement with this. So both of you guys are right.
100% now. I'm doing kids now. All my grandkids I've gotten.
Smart.
Yeah, let me just add something here about estrogen. We have to agree that estrogen is carcinogenic, excess of estrogens. Can we agree on that term? Can you agree on that?
Correct.
You have to.
Can we agree on excess of estrogens as a carcinogenic?
It's not carcinogenic for everyone. It may be carcinogenic depending on a person's genetic.
Is it going down the 2-hydroxy
so let's go with
side or the 4-hydroxy
I will go with that. That's true. I will confirm. See, I'll confirm everything you say. Methylation is very important to detox those excess of estrogens. So methylation is detoxing process of getting rid from those estrogens. I agree with you 100%.
Along with the good microbiome, because you got to stop the recirculation of that.
Right. So I agree with that. So if you have excess of estrogens, in addition, you have problem with methylation, that's 2 in 1, that will lead to cancer. So excess of estrogen still it is leading of cancer. And if you don't agree on that, just Harvard
I don't
recently.
disagree. I'm just saying it's not the be all.
It's not that straightforward, simple.
Exactly. There's a lot. There's a lot of contiguous.
Just recently, Harvard Medical School is publishing an article emphasizing excess of estrogen is carcinogenic. I'm not talking about estradiol.
Right.
I'm talking about estrogens.
You're talking about
estrogens is inflammatory and proliferative. And you need to balance it with progesterone. And you want to learn about this, even in women, when they have the cycle, they have estrogen spike, which leads to proliferation of endometrium. And then they have progesterone, which leads to differentiation of the endometrium. If there is no much of progesterone in those women and they have only estrogens or estrogens, then this endometrial will become cancer. Can you agree on that?
Absolutely reasonable. Yeah.
Right. So we understand that estrogen excess, not normal level. I'm not talking about normal. I'm talking about estrogen excess can be carcinogenic. And we can agree on that when you give patients testosterones without giving progesterone, those excess of testosterone will convert to estrogens by the fat tissue. And estrogens, if it's excess, it can be carcinogenic. And that's the reason, to be in peace of mind, just give progesterone to prevent that conversion from happening and also antagonize the proliferative oxidative stress effect of estrogen or estrogens. Can we agree on that?
That's what I actually used to do. I still take progesterone, but I have measured where my estrone is going to make sure that my methylation, which I am screwed on a bunch of SNPs, both hetero and homozygous, on, I don't know, 20 of the standard SNPs that we look at for methylation and clearing mechanisms. I've had to modify a lot of stuff in order to keep my estrone going down the right path.
So I think the answer is both of you guys are right. I think that the reality is that there's a lot of contiguous factors here. But the logic that you both presented is 100% accurate. And I think the moral of the story is that genetic testing prior to starting hormone optimization, even in younger people, is probably the best way to go at this point.
Right.
I believe that now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nobody knew anything about genetic testing 5 years ago. I mean, look, do you guys have any idea how many physicians still prescribe AIs and SERMs for gyno?
Right.
It's a fucking joke.
Look at the reference, facts and comparisons.
Right.
They still put progestins when you do a progesterone search. I mean, it's riddled with misinformation.
Right. It is.
Yeah, I mean, even the point. So, Jay, I don't know if there's a drug called Bijuva is the trade name, and it's an estradiol progesterone natural bioidentical pill combination. It was made for that specifically, if you put in go to a web search and put that in your web search, in WebMD will come up pretty near the top.
What's the name of it again?
Bijuva, Bijuva.
Bijuva. All right.
I don't know if you know this,
Yeah,
Jay.
capsules. I see it.
Yeah, and
estradiol and progesterone.
and it won't say progesterone. It'll say estradiol, like estra. It'll be the synthetics.
No,
Wow.
the
That's what
Google
it said.
search,
That's what the VA uses.
the
VA
Google search says
Look at
estradiol and
WebMD.
progesterone.
So
Yeah.
any other tips, tricks for testosterone optimization?
Can we get to the level though? I mean,
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. I mean, I personally think it's getting crowded because now you have all these oral agents. I think you guys are aware of the FDA has approved like 3 different drugs now. And here's the rub with those things is it's a scam. I mean, and I've talked to hundreds of patients on those, and no man who uses them feels good because it's literally taking them from suboptimal to normal. Right? It's like bumping their levels in the total, like in the mid 300s, maybe in the low 400s, and the free goes to maybe if they're 4 to 5 to 6 on free, they go to maybe 12 to 15, and so they don't feel better, right? But the doctor prescribing that is like, oh, well, you're normal, so you're good. So it's none of them work, and truthfully, none of them were ever any different or designed differently than what we knew in like the old school steroidal hormone andriol, which was again just testosterone undecanoate in oral formulation, in an oil, so it doesn't pass. It never, from a hepatotoxicity standpoint, it was never strong enough to cause an issue from a methyl alkylation standpoint. But at the same time, it would never get a man optimized. So those are worthless. I still say,
how about there's a nasal spray.
The nasal is absolutely a joke. And the doctor that prescribes it, the big guy, Namasani, he's a great guy. He's been on my podcast twice. I've worked with so many of those patients. For put it this way, for the men that it works for who don't get side effects, it's okay because it's fast clearing. They do maintain LH and FSH function. So that's great. And that's why Ramasani's all over it, because he's like, oh, it's a testosterone formulation that doesn't cause, hypogonadal axis.
It's also $800 a month, and you got.
Well, of course.
You got to spray your nose 3 times a day. Also,
dude, it's a total financial scam. And look, that's what I was just going to say. I mean, men have serious headaches, nosebleeds. I mean, this is not a drug. I mean, look, don't get me going. This is the same medieval shit as getting pellets. And for any of you guys who prescribe pellets, I know there's value in pellets, but I don't see value in pellets when you can inject yourself or use a scrotal if you're a man, or a perivaginal for a woman, gel or a cream, So, I mean, I again, there's two delivery systems that are tried and true and studied for 75 years. As Dr. Keith Nichols always says to me, Jay, there's never been a single randomized controlled trial with pellets. And there never will be, right? So it's like, yeah, some people get pellets and that use pellets and they work and they feel good. And again, I know people in the field, in the military, some is better than nothing. So I'm not like all against pellets now, but it's not an optimal delivery system. And at the end of the day, the transcrotal, is the best, combined with every other day injections or daily injections, depending on how type A, an anal retentive a person is. And for women, perivaginal. Women are definitely a lot more difficult to optimize than men for many reasons. But my wife is actually using an oral formulation now of a testosterone lozenge, or I think it's not a troche, it's a lozenge or whatever. And it has, she's not using it like that because she takes her lozenge for progesterone at night, but she takes the testosterone in the morning. And it's been the best that she's been able to get. And she's used everything else under the sun. Mm-hmm. So I do think women's hormone optimization is getting closer from a standpoint of knowledge and awareness. But women are still massively underserved.
We still get, we just a couple of weeks ago, we sent a lab slip down to an out hospital down near Lake Tahoe here. And I got a call. The head of the lab wants to talk to you. And
of course,
I said, Dr. Clearfield, he says, what matchbook did you get your medical degree from?
I can't believe they actually say that to you guys.
I said, excuse me. He says, what idiot orders testosterone levels on women?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah, I don't have to make this stuff up. And
Thank God.
Joel can vouch for it. He's heard most of it.
Thank God. I don't have to
This was
deal
a
with the
month ago.
bullshit that you guys deal with. My God.
Yeah, this is the head of the laboratory down at the
You just want to bitch slap him, dude.
No comment.
I used to kind of get upset about it, but now I just kind of laugh because
Now you just laugh when they yell like that at you. You're like,
Well, they just got to
what
be.
is this?
They just got to be educated, and that's one of
Right.
the things I like about Halasa. He's trying to educate, those doctors who don't know, and there's a whole lot of us out there.
yeah, and there's a whole lot of doctors who don't want to know either.
Right.
No,
Well, I mean, it's like you
There's
said,
bad-
Bill. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, I know you guys know this because you're dealing with this every day. But I mean, at the end of the day, man, doctors got mortgages and college tuitions and second houses and boats.
Yeah, but so Joel's here in my office, right? So those are the guys sitting around waiting for people to show up, right? And
Right.
what's our waiting list, right? What's our
exactly.
first visit? I think it's
Like 3
July.
months.
So July
3
or
months.
August, I think you call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
that's insane.
I'm not worried about the mortgage.
Yeah, exactly.
So can we shift gears a little bit? Because
Yeah, absolutely. I think somebody wanted to talk about total levels of testosterone or whatever. If you want to,
That was me. I
go ahead.
let me use myself. I'm a 56-year-old. I'm taking care of my 79-year-old father who's developing mild cognitive decline. He's doing pretty good. He's also Doc's patient. He just got out of the hospital with double pneumonia. So I'm not exercising definitely as much as I want.
Right.
And my testosterone levels are probably around 9, I think, sometimes to 11. It just depends, and it depends on the testing. And of course, I got to use the VA, but my practitioner at the VA is pretty awesome. So I don't go to endocrinology there, but I finally got the VA here to start working with Dr. Clearfield. So let's say I want to start working out. I want to start doing the OsteoStrong. Should I pump it up a little bit?
100%. Yeah.
I thought so. What do you think a good level would be at my age group?
I mean, again, in the absence of symptoms and side effects, I don't think there really is a level. I mean, as long as you feel good and you have the energy and the recovery, the energy and the recovery ability. I mean, I always liken it to, can I lift weights 3 days a week and recover and feel great? And do I sleep soundly at night? Because it doesn't matter your age, you should be able to do some form of bone bearing resistance training 3 days a week. You know, and the more muscular you are, the less you even have to train. People see my wife and I, and they're always like, you people must be in the gym 2 hours every day. And we're like, dude, I go to the gym and lift weights 3 days a week, and I'm in the gym at 35 minutes tops. Now I have cardiovascular equipment in my house. I ride a bike, and my wife has a treadmill, and we've got some other cool stuff and gadgets and tech. But like, it's very simple. If you understand how to build muscle, you don't need a lot of time. You have to take, and again, it doesn't matter the age. They have studies in 90-year-old women who build muscle in 2 weeks, positive innervation of fibers, and seeing, you even see cross-sectional analysis where the fibers change. They go from type 2 twitch to type 2A oxidative to type 2 twitch, fast twitch. So it's just a form of training and how often and consistent you do it. But absolutely, you can increase your dosage. I mean, dude, I would tell you at your age, you probably want to be somewhere between 30 and 35 free testosterone.
Right.
That's where you're going to feel good. I mean, most men, and there's no cookie cutter, but most men feel amazing at 40.
Right.
Free from a free level.
Got you.
So tell us about 30 Days to Shred, Jay.
Sure. So 30 Days to Shred is basically my fat loss masterpiece. I mean, it's a brogue title, but it really is a scientific treatise on fat loss. It's 440 pages. It was actually 620 pages, and we had to gut a lot of it because we had a whole couple of chapters on, okay, you got to your weight level, you got to your maintenance level, now what, right? And then I was just like, this is getting too verbose and too scientific. The average person just wants to buy this so that they can lose how they can lose the most amount of weight
But
productively.
that's actually quite important. I think that should be the sequel now. what to
Well,
do.
I mean, it is, of course, that is going to be the next book. And that's why I didn't want to put it in here. Because as you know, again, the attention span of a gnat, like you said, you said I have a TikTok account only because my team posts me on TikTok. I have not been in my TikTok account in 2 years because that is what's blocking people from reading. But no, it's a really awesome scientific book. I'm happy to give anybody who's here tonight access to it as a PDF. Of course, I'd recommend buying it on Amazon. I mean, it's a monster. It's right here. I mean, seriously, it's an 8.5 by 11 book, and look how thick it is. I mean, it's a monster. There's a lot of we go really, really deep on teaching people how to, fast for maximum fat loss and no muscle. I mean, maximum fat loss and zero muscle loss, right? So, if you're a newbie to weight training, you could probably even gain 2 or 3 pounds of lean skeletal mass. But, the goal with the book was to teach people all the latest cutting edge tips, tricks, and tactics using, obviously medical interventions like GLP-1 agonists, GH agonist peptides, hormonal optimization combined with growth hormone. I mean, I'm blown away, and I'm sure a lot of you guys listening and watching this are, at the nonsense that is out there about human growth hormone. I mean, it is insane how brainwashed the medical side of the world has been on that too. I mean, you've got people in the Life Extension Foundation, and they have their own, internal anecdotal research and studies and stuff like that. But like, there's people going back 40 years using 1 IU to 1.5 IUs of, pharma grade growth hormone, and massively improving all cause, basically just age suppression or age regression, keeping amazing blood glucose levels and insulin sensitivity levels, all biomarkers pristine. But there's just so much misinformation about growth hormone. And, most people are like, oh, it shuts down your pituitary and your body will never have any more and blah, blah, blah. And I've just heard so much bullshit from so many people. But I've never seen a person who wasn't living insulin controlled and who was hormonally optimized and obviously doing it right, who did not benefit from throwing in 1 IUs to 1.5 IUs of growth hormone Monday through Friday. And for older people, when I say older people, like, 70s and up, there's no reason why they can't take growth hormone every day. Again. And when I say doing it right, obviously you have to control for insulin. You have to use metformin or, dihydroberberin or even a combination of the two. There's all sorts of now amazing natural supplements that are over the counter with incredible glucose disposal agents and just really synergistic products that really help with maintaining really good insulin sensitivity as you age. But there's just no reason not to use it. I mean, you'll hear people, and again, we've done this on the Doctors Roundtable. Dr. Komenark has been very outspoken about this. Dr. Nichols, myself, I've been using human growth hormone myself for 4 years now, at 1 IU to 1.5 IUs. And it's not going to cause, metastatic tumor formation. If you abuse it, and you start getting into the 4 and 5 and 6 IUs, which I'm sure people do, right? Because again, we live in a culture of more is better. If some is good, more must be better. And your diet sucks, and you're not living insulin controlled, and you do have a predisposition in your family to some form of cancer. Is it possible that it could spark on a tumor and you could express for something? Of course, but you have just the same risk, every single day crossing a busy intersection in a major city. So it's like, if you're going to really enhance your life as you get older and maintain leanness, and I saw a couple of you guys say, yeah, just get lean. There's nothing better than hormonal optimization and growth hormone. Now, I'm a huge peptide advocate and supporter, and I love all the GH agonist peptides, but all peptides lead to antibody formation and buildup. And that's why you have to cycle them. And you don't have to cycle growth hormone. Now, granted, you have to be able to afford pharmaceutical grade growth hormone, and a lot of people can't. But there's easy ways now to get it from offshore pharmacies. And by the way, it's completely legal. You're supposed to have a script, but they're not enforcing it in the United States. There's a way for, obviously if you pass or fail, I say pass, but if you fail a glucostim test, you can get a prescription from any doctor, can write it for you off label, but it's still $4,000 to $5,000 a month. Agrifta, which is obviously tesamorelin, is more than that. and it's not as effective. I mean, some people think it's more effective for getting rid of fat, center adiposity mass, heavy visceral body, fat bodies. But I don't think it's better than growth hormone. And if I'm putting peptides and GLP-1 agonists together, Dr. Rudolph Eberwein, who's on my show down in Miami, he's been using GLP-1 agonists for 14 years. He's running a very successful obesity clinic in Miami. He's worked with geriatrics. He's worked with he's worked with very elite people, and he's been using them forever. And his thing is, he calls it the what is it? The 3 T's of, testosterone, terzapatide, and then I forget what the other thing is, but he's like
Morellin.
Yeah, exactly. So
never heard of it.
Yeah, right. So, but I mean, like, the truth is like, if let's talk about GLPs, because I think it's important, because in the media, I could mention names, but I won't. But I know but the media loves to glom on to the negativity around GLP-1 agonists, and sadly, because there's such a misprescribing, if that's the word I want to use, in the clinical community, because they're not teaching their patients how to do this correctly, you do see a lot of symptoms and side effects, because they're all titrating their dosages too high. They're all telling their patients to use a 2.5 milligram dose, and then 2 weeks later to go to 5, and then go to 7.5, and then go to fucking 15. And now they have receptor attenuation, and now they're, quote unquote, their body is addicted to this high dosage of this medication. They've got, what is it called? What is the stomach paralysis diagnosis that they have now? Gastroparenthesis or whatever. Gastroparenthesis. Yeah, they're inventing diagnoses, and then they have, Wegovy face and Wegovy butt, chin, and all this nonsense. But the truth is, guys, is that it works so well that these people are not eating. And they aren't eating enough protein, and they're not training and lifting weights and, again, building muscle. But I mean, all the people that do, and I have now thousands of people that have come through the book and have, done their before and afters and done all this stuff. They're profound. I mean, they're life-changing. They're life-altering. We know the science shows that they change impulsive nature. They're rewiring dopaminergic, serotonergic, all serotonin, I mean, all of them, the synaptic, all the brain pathways, so that people stop living a life of like not being able to control their impulses. I mean, I've had thousands of people message me saying, I can't believe this stuff, but I have no interest in eating shitty food anymore.
Let's see.
The fast food czars, the CEOs of the fast food, are rallying and meeting and saying, what are we going to do? These drugs are destroying our profitability, because people are not going to eat shitty food anymore.
Yeah,
so I mean, I'm a huge advocate of them, but again, I'm an advocate of them being controlled and used correctly, and obviously within the context of health and longevity. And I tell everybody that you should not use. Now, granted, an obese person, a very inflamed, insulin, metabolically deranged, as Rob says, a metabolic emergency in Ohio. For people like that, then I can see moving their dosage up a little bit, right? But for normal people who are wanting to lose 20 to 30, 40 pounds of fat, or 20 to 25 pounds, whatever it is, they should not be titrating the dosage any higher than 2.5 to 3 milligrams. Everything in combination with peptide, GH agonist, peptides, hormonal optimization, and a proper insulin-controlled diet and training. And that works 95% of the time. It's literally that simple.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I know you're a big advocate, and you had somebody on one of your shows who's running a very high cost peptide weight loss program. 3 peptides and 9 supplements for $1,500 a month or something like that.
Is it the guys in Miami at MHI?
I'm not sure. I can't remember who it was. I looked at it once, and I was trying to tease out what the peptides were. So,
yeah.
Fred, could you turn off your microphone here? Yeah.
How do you know who doesn't have a mic or who's unmuted? That's pretty cool. There's a lot of people here.
So the GLP-1s, tell us about more than a year ago, before you started talking about it, I had actually gotten a hold of some Calicurb, and which
That's
is
awesome.
an oral GLP-1, and I did terrible on it. I always try it out myself, and it didn't do anything for me. And then so I put it aside and I went on to the next one.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
and then you started talking about it, and I said, "Well, I've seen this before, and stuff really doesn't work." So then I went back and I looked at it again, and I wasn't taking it the right way.
Well, I mean, here's the truth about Calicurb. It works if you're fasting. If you're just using it to minimize your appetite or stop your appetite, it's not going to do shit. I'm very vocal about this. I mean, look, true story, full disclosure. They want to make me an equity partner in their company now because I've blown their company through the roof, but it's hilarious. I was walking through A4M in December, and every year I kind of manifest it that I'm going to find a company and change the destiny of their company. I did it last year with a company called Vibrogenics, and now this year it's these guys. But I mean, I'm looking at this company, and this is a true story. And I'm at the booth, I'm with my wife, and there's a couple other doctors. We're just hanging out and talking. And I walk up to the booth, and it's a tall woman, clearly a Kiwi, they're from New Zealand. And I'm to start talking to her about it. And I said, look, I don't know, anything about your company, but if it works, I'm one of the biggest GLP promoters and marketers probably in the world, and I can really help your company. And like, how do I find out more about it? And she's like handing me all the science and paper, and she's very intelligent, and I was like, okay, this is cool. Can you put me in touch with the ownership group? And she's like, you're talking to her. So I'm like, wow. Right. So then right from that moment, I'm like, okay, well, look, I'm not going to play games. Like, you have the product right now. And she's like,
is everyone frozen?
She's like, we don't have any right here, but I can get you some. And I'm like, well, look, I want to start taking it immediately. So bottom line, they got me a couple of bottles from their people that were there on their staff, and they handed it to me, and I started taking it. This was on Saturday at the show. And on Sunday morning, I started taking it. And dude, I was blown away. Now, I'm a faster. I fast every other day. That's my lifestyle. That's obviously on my 30 days of shreds diet. I've been doing it for a long time, but that is the lifestyle that I practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, man, it works. It's unbelievable how well it works. Now, again, when I say how well it works and it's unbelievable, I mean, if you are already fasting, if you want to extend your fast window, say from 16 to 18 hours to 20 to 22 hours, it's unbelievable. Now, my wife is not really a hardcore faster. Fasting for her is like 14 to 15 hours. Her mom is from a ranch in Culiacan, Durango, Mexico. She's very close to the equatorial pole and dark skin. And so, those, as I always say, they have to reach up, their ethnicity and their heritage is they reach up into the trees and they get their food, right? So it's like they have much better and controlled insulin sensitivity than, people like us from Northern European who are more hunter-gatherers and feast and famine. So bottom line is, it's like I gave her some 2 days later when we got back to Tampa, and she fasted for 20 hours and wasn't hungry. And that's when she had never in her life ever fasted longer than 16 hours without getting hangry or that, I got to eat. And so she was like looking at me like, dude, what is going on with this? And that's when I knew that, like, okay, there's something up to this. And then I had my mentee who I do a lot of stuff with, Hunter Williams. He's a business partner of mine now. He flew out because we were making some videos. This is right before Christmas, the week before Christmas. And I had him do it for 2 days, and he was blown away too. He was like, dude, this works as well as tirzepatide for me. So most of the people that are using it, I get about an 80%. This is amazing. I get about 10%. You're a scammer. And then I get another 10% that say, it did something, but I'm not living insulin controlled. So I would just say, and this is what I continue to say, if you're a faster, it will work. If you're not a faster, I would say start fasting before you start using it, but absolutely under no circumstances should you use that product if you're not fasting, because it will not do anything. Now, the one other thing, this is fascinating research. And by the way, they have a lot of clinical research, which is really what led me to really, get behind them. They are finding out now, and they have a study ongoing. It's not published yet, but they're finding out, and I noticed this in myself, because you guys are going to be blown away when I tell you this. It's regulating the microbiome to a more ancient / natural / this is the way it should be. And so now, because I have a ravenous appetite, I mean, obviously I'm a pretty muscular guy, and I just, you know, when I train really hard, I can get really hungry. You guys, I can't eat as much food anymore. Like I literally cannot finish a ribeye. I can't finish like a 16-ounce ribeye at a nice steak restaurant, you know, anywhere in the United States, where in the past I'd be pounding that down and finishing my wife's. So and listen, their lead researcher, you know, he works for the New Zealand Ministry of Health or whatever the hell their deal is, you know, the FDA for New Zealand. And he said, look, we have clinical proof. It's not published yet, but we have clinical proof that it's regulating microbiomes to be more healthy and more at a natural level. So he's like, what you're experiencing, because I started telling him this about 3 weeks ago. He's like, what you're experiencing is what we see with almost all of our patients or all of our clients.
What's the name of the drug?
It's not a drug. It's actually a supplement, and and you know they've already been hammered, of course, by the FDA. And they have to say they're a GLP activating supplement.
Yeah.
So there's like, you know, nomenclature.
What is it? GLP?
A GLP activating supplement, but you can go to CaloCurb.
What does that mean? GLP activating substance. What's
So
that
it
mean?
basically, it's called amorosate. That's the actual native ingredient, and it's of the hops family. Yeah, it's from the hops family. It grows wild in New Zealand, and the amorosate is extracted from the hops, and it just naturally increases GLP hormones in the body, in the human body.
All right, so
GLP hormones.
Yeah, let me tell you my experience. So a little bit different. Like I said, over a year ago, I think that not last year's A4M, the year before. So I actually found this, and
That's when they launched, by the way. That's when they launched. Yeah, that was when they launched. You saw it right when they launched.
So I only used 2 a day, and it didn't do much of anything. Now we've been using the compounded semaglutide and tirzepatide for quite a while,
Sure.
and that worked pretty well. But we were looking for something else, so I put this aside, and I didn't pick it up again. I said, well, you know, Jay's hawking this stuff now. I said I used that. It didn't do a damn thing, right?
Yeah.
But I picked it up again, and I looked at the instructions, and it said, 4 a day.
You're taking one. They probably didn't even have that on the dude. When I asked them about so this is insider knowledge for you guys. So the owners is that woman, Kennedy, whatever her first name is, I forget her name right now, Kathleen Kennedy, and then her co-founder is a guy by the name Paul Martin. And Paul is like me; he's a very fit guy. He's younger than me. He's like in his early 40s, but you know, very successful serial entrepreneur. And he told me in a private conversation that he does 3-day fasts twice a year with it, and he takes 12 capsules. So he'll take 6 capsules the first day, and he said sometimes he'll take 2 in the morning and 4 like later at night when he starts feeling hungry. And then the next day he'll take 3. Is that right? No. He'll take 2, 2, and 2, and then the third day he doesn't even have to use them. And he says it works every time. So he's like 12 capsules over 72 hours is amazing.
So I'm not a faster, and Joel can attest to this fact. If I don't eat lunch, I'm a crazy person here in the office.
Right. I got it.
Yeah.
Are you fasting like the Muslims or different?
It's pretty rough. And you know, I'm just going to throw this in. We got a female veteran who just lost. And she was on the GLPs from the VA, and she lost 110 pounds. Can you imagine?
Wow,
110 pounds.
That's amazing.
So, you know what else can go on? That's just huge. That's
when you talk
huge.
about,
and then hopefully we can get into a little bit about detoxification, because if you're doing the intermittent fasting and you're losing all this weight, someone like her, I was super worried about what she was going through, losing all that weight, because we know we're starting to throw in a lot of toxins and chemicals and poisons.
Yeah.
So when you talk about fasting, is it fasting of the Muslims?
You include that into your intermittent fasting and your program and your, you know, hormone optimization?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's 2 people talking. So to answer you, Joel, and whoever the other doctor is, I'll get to you in a second, because you asked about Islamic fasting versus the type of fasting. So to answer your question, and again, refresh my memory, what you were talking about the girl, what was the biggest ask?
She lost 110 pounds,
Right.
She,
And
so
was she using a GLP or no?
yeah, she was using a GLP, and she is a veteran, exposed to burn pits, exposed to toxins, vaccines, pills, blah, 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 the whole thing. So I know she's releasing an immense amount of toxins, poisons, and chemicals into her system. And so far, she's handled it semi-well.
Yeah. So, I mean, the answer is as long as she's exercising, as long as she's detoxing, check methylation factors, she can absolutely keep going. I mean, it's always a much more difficult road for people that are inflamed and obviously metabolic resistant and, have a lot of fat to lose. Because like you said, I mean, that's the problem, I mean, again, Dr. Anthony J talks about this all the time. I mean, very obese people have so many chemicals in the visceral body fat from the environment. I think you and I, Bill, were talking about that last year at AMMG. And this is not discussed. Nobody talks about this. And it's sad because there are a lot of obese people that do attempt to do this right. And they're just laden with toxins. And it's very difficult. Like, I mean, let's be honest, man, and no offense to some of you guys living out there, but I mean, if you're in Ohio, Indiana, Nebraska, that whole stretch, I mean, that is just pure glyphosate and atrazine. Like your environment is just contaminated. And a lot of these people have have those chemicals.
I went to medical school in Iowa, and I remember in the spring, they'd have, competing commercials, atrazine, Bladex,
think about that.
All of the pesticides,
Look, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. And that's Procter and Gamble. And, that tri-state of Southern Indiana, Southern Ohio, Northern Kentucky is the most cancer-filled place in the world. And I grew up there, and I'm not kidding you guys. I just went back there in the early part of January to attend an uncle, my mom's brother's funeral. And it was 2 degrees, and I'm like, thank God I left here. But I mean, I literally woke up because I was staying at a nice hotel right south of the Ohio River in Northern Kentucky, which is where the funeral was. And the Procter & Gamble plant was still shitting shit into the sky.
Yeah, well.
And I'm just thinking, man, look at what's happening. But so, I mean, the reality is those people are in a bad place, and we should all have a lot of compassion and empathy for them and, reach out. And my mom, died, quote unquote, of a COVID diagnosis, but she was morbidly obese. She died last year, God rest her soul, in March. But I mean, that's all I wanted to do was help her.
Mm-hmm.
And you
can't help me, Jay. You've been doing this long enough. You should know what you're doing by now.
It's unreal. As you guys know, we can't help our family and our friends.
No, that was my mother. That's always my, you've been doing this for 30 years. You should know what you're doing by now. So
literally unbelievable.
So my experience now with CaloCurve is around January 15th. Is that about when you started
no, so I started CaloCurve around December.
Yeah.
Let me make
I
sure
started hearing from you around January 15th. So I picked
I didn't promote it until we did the podcast launch, but I started using it. I'm going to confirm right now. So A4M I started taking on 17th of December.
Yeah. So I picked it up around January 15th. I'm not a faster, but I become I'm eating probably 2/3 less than I normally do. Everything's left over. There's leftovers now left over. I've lost 12 pounds in 5 weeks, but one of those weeks I was on a cruise.
Congratulations, by the way.
I actually was a pound down from before I left.
That's insane, especially because all you do is eat on cruises.
Yeah. So I actually weighed less when I got home from the cruise.
So how many are you taking?
I'm taking 4. And then I'm using.
I would look. So I'm using 3 and 3 now. So I take 3 and 3 when only on fasting days.
I've been using another product called High Phenolic from Orthomolecular. It's got green coffee beans in it, and guava beans. I use that first thing in the morning as soon as I wake up on an.
And that's for the energy. Yeah, and that's for the energy and clear thoughts.
So I mean, I feel really good. I've lost 12 pounds in 5 weeks. And like I said, 1 week was on a cruise, which is like almost unheard of. And it feels great. And I'm not hungry, so I went out to dinner last night. We had friends in from out of town. I sat there and watched them all eat. I had a.
So were you just so you so I mean so yeah so you know that Jay Campbell does not bullshit people. Number one.
No, I know that's
number
why,
two.
we have you here. I mean, you don't even have
I
a
love you,
medical
man.
degree. I
No,
don't
I'm just kidding. I love you.
whatever
But I mean,
talking
like,
to you.
but was it just because you were only taking one capsule and you were like, "This is a joke"?
Yeah. Well, I said, well, I didn't look at it, and I went to 2 a day.
Sure.
And then after a while, it's like, okay, I have this attention span like everybody else of a gnat.
Of course, all of us. That's why I don't go on social media, dude. People say to me, "Oh, did you see in so and so stuff?" And I'm like, all I do is create and post. I rarely have time to see stuff. I mean, I'm grateful that some people read my stuff. I mean, that's about the best way I could do it. But I mean, you just can't get caught up in it.
So
Are they selling the supplements as an active ingredients?
So Bill, do you have a so they're putting together a wholesale program. Are you already do you have their wholesale program?
Actually, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Did they sell the API?
So we've had for over 2 years now. We've been using the semaglutide and some terzipatide. We were using the Create Pharmacy formula, which had semaglutide 1.25 milligrams. It had BPC 157, which we had to take out now, and it had B6 in it. And we did great guns on that. It was 1/3 the price of the commercial product. We did it 5 days a week at 0.2 of a cc. And now we're recommending this as part of our maintenance program now. So, and we've been doing great guns on this. I mean, we get calls from all over the country, and we don't even advertise it. I don't even know where these people are coming from. But we had to take on more staff, and it's unbelievable.
That's awesome.
Are they selling it as an API?
As what?
Are they selling it as an API? Active ingredients.
I don't
know. The product's patented.
Yeah.
Are they willing to sell it to the compounding pharmacy as an active pharmaceutical ingredient or API?
No.
Or
they patented it so that it can't be.
So they're not interested in selling raw material.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So they want to sell it as finished products.
So effectively, I'm pretty much fasting from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Yeah. I'm just not hungry. I mean, it's not even a thought. I mean, I have a little something at noon, like a little soup or something. That's just to sort of keep me going. And like I said, I've lost a lot of weight, and
it's awesome, man.
No effort. The stuff is great.
I mean, it's definitely profound.
I came to condemn you on it originally, like a month ago.
But look, it's definitely profound. And then the other thing is, and this is where I think, I mean, I'm happy to get you I mean, it sounds like you're already talking to him, but I mean, I'm really good friends with the ownership now. So if we want to have a deeper call and talk about maybe a bigger opportunity with this, but I think where the opportunity is for this is bridging people off of the GLPs, because I think too many people are addicted to the high dosage of GLPs, and because that's the number one question I get about GLPs now. First off, I have to scold the people because they'll come into my private group and they're like, I'm on 7.5 milligrams. I'm like, and they're not even fat. Like, what? Yeah, that's what my doctor put me on. They went from 2.5 to 5, 3 weeks, right? So it's like, boom, the money. So like, if we could come up with a formulation or, a strategy, even a protocol of like taking people off GLPs who've had results and move them to CaloCurb. Now, one other thing, just for all of you guys to know, is the beauty of CaloCurb or the product is it only works. It's a fast clearer. So it only really works on the days that you're fasting or the days that you want it to fast. Whereas like, you take a GLP and you're taking a high dosage, that thing is on at all times. So you're sleeping at night, you feel it. So it's like, if you take CaloCurb first thing in the morning and then, another 2 or 3 capsules at say 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, by the time you go to bed at night, it's pretty much cleared from your system. Mm-hmm. Versus the GLP, you're on it. You know what I mean? Especially at a high dose.
I'm doing it at 10 a.m. and at 4 p.m. So
yeah. When you talk about GLP, are you talking about the glucagon peptide? Is that what it is?
No. We're talking about the GLP-1 agonists like semaglutide, which is
semaglutide. Yes, the glutides. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you know that there is a big risk of using it because it does have proliferating effect on the pancreatic duct, and it can cause obstruction of pancreatic ducts when patient can end up with acute pancreatitis.
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt about that. I've talked about that a lot. You know, Peter Attia has glommed onto that too. Again, if you are a metabolic emergency and you do not change your diet while you're taking these drugs, you can have what they call is, what's the diagnosis again, Doc?
It's acute pancreatitis because of the obstruction of the
Yeah,
duct.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, again, it's delaying gastric emptying. That's how it works. And if you're trying to shovel a bunch of shit down your fucking gullet, you're gonna have
I have a problem with it. The other problem I have.
Don't sugarcoat it, Jay.
That's what these people are doing. They think it's a magic panacea.
Right.
They pick up their GLP-1 from my office and they go right up to the street to the Popeyes.
Okay. Let me give you something about the problem here. Another problem. You know, I have my uncle, and he said, I don't like insulin because insulin. No, I don't like metformin because metformin cause weight loss, and I want to eat things. So I switched to insulin so I can inject the insulin and eat all the sugar I want. Right. So insulin itself is a free radical generator. So it's a fire.
Correct.
And add the sugar, and the sugar get oxidized, and it's another free radical generator, which is another fire. And he's burning his cardiovascular. He ends up doing a lot of cardiovascular procedures because of that. Now, the GOP, which is the glutides that you talked about, do have one of their effects is increasing insulin production. So basically, you are increasing the insulin, and then you end up eating a lot of stuff, and you're putting sugar in and increasing the insulin. It's you burning their cardiovascular diseases. I'm
100% agreement. I mean, you're not. I mean, and that's the problem with these things is you combine all of that without knowledgeable doctors like you guys. I mean, think of all these people that are getting these things from fucking windmill clinics on the corners who aren't even doctors. You know, they're not even. I mean, they're just, hey, I'm fat. I want one of these, and boom, you know, here's your insurance card. I mean, it's insane what's happening, but everything you just said is 100% true. And that's why they're being vilified, you know, in the media, because just as there's amazing results from it, from when it's done correctly and accurately, there's just as many negative results because these people are not being instructed correctly. And you're right. If you're a type 2 diabetic and you're taking insulin and using this, man, there's all sorts of problems that can happen and are happening.
A couple of just to circle back. Someone asked what are your sources of growth hormone? You mentioned some offshore pharmacies.
Yeah, so there's a pharmacy. I mean, you know, I'm happy to give this publicly at this point, but there's a lot of places you can get genotropin now. A pen, depending on where you source it from Thailand or Turkey, is anywhere from $350 to $425, depending on how many you buy at a time. Again, it's Pfizer growth hormone, genotropin. I call it the nectar of the gods. This is the best growth hormone on earth. I've actually gotten into arguments and debates with people because, you know, a lot of doctors / scientists want to say that growth hormone is all the same, and it's not. I don't care what anybody says. Like, you could use U.S. growth hormone like somatropin and some of these other ones, and you can use genotropin from Pfizer and norditropin from Novo Nordisk, and you will realize that those formulations shit all over everything else in the marketplace. And I know that not just for myself, but from many, many professional fighters, you know, MMA people that, you know, have to be super lean and have to not take drugs to get tested or whatever because of their sports and their performance. And they all will say the same thing. I've had literally MMA guys send me pictures of the U.S. growth hormone that they get from a very famous person that I won't name in Vegas. I know, Phil, you know who I'm talking about. Okay. And they throw it in the trash can, and they say to me in their text messages, was it fake? And I'm like, maybe, because that's how big.
Well, that's always the problem. So the other problem is, you know, we have licenses to protect, which you
I
don't.
understand.
And you know, it is illegal via the FDA to prescribe growth hormone as an anti-aging agent.
Right, unless, according to Rob, they fail the glucostim test, correct?
Right. Yeah.
But even if they fail the glucostim test, you still cost through a script, 40,
Yeah,
what, 4,500 bucks.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. University Compounding in San Diego has kind of a knockoff called Zomectin. I don't know, Zonactin, they call
Yeah,
it.
Zonactin. Yeah, I've heard that is absolutely shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but it's
I haven't used it myself, but I've heard
$105 a bottle, so it'll last.
How much is it a bottle?
105. So
it's only 105 bucks.
yeah.
Oh, that's not bad at all. But I honestly, the insights or the feedback that I get on Zomactin or whatever it's called is not good in comparison.
Right.
To this stuff.
So yeah, we use a lot of the peptides, and sparsely use growth hormone because of that. So
you just can't get it. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, you might be able to get it from IndiaMart.com, but when you call them,
so the place I'm happy to give you guys the place. It's in Thailand. I mean, if anybody wants to send me an email, j@jcampbell.com, I'll send it to you. Look, I know a lot of doctors, I won't mention names, that buy it direct, use it for themselves. I mean, they're not giving it to their patients or anything, but it's readily available. They ship it right to your door.
Okay. All right. Just to wrap up a little bit on peptides from your book and combinations for weight loss and whatnot. So I know you like the CJC combos and AOD 9604 has been touted as a weight loss.
Dude, I wrote one of my copywriters wrote an article today about AOD and comparing it to ipamorelin. So bottom line for the GH agonist peptides, ipamorelin in isolation for women is by far the best peptide for fat loss because again, it doesn't disturb pituitary function at all. It can be dosed 3 or 4 times a day. It has a saturation dose of like 200 micrograms. So most women will get really amazing results at like 200 to 300 micrograms right before bed, just one shot. A lot of people aren't going to inject themselves 3 or 4 times a day, but I do know people that do. So that's always going to be your best peptide from a cost benefit standpoint. And also because it doesn't disturb endogenous production whatsoever. Not that that's really a worry. The best fat loss peptide for men is Tessa because most men have, again, abdominal body fat. And that's what obviously that was created for. Agrifta. There are still a lot of compound pharmacies that are making it. Obviously the research companies, you can get tesamorelin pretty easily now. And then CJC is amazing, but I don't like it personally because I get a red flushing similar to like a niacin, experience when I use it. So I really don't like it. And I know a lot of other people that also get that similar experience, so they don't use it either. But in combination with ipamorelin, it's sensational. It's probably as close to an actual HGH spike as any peptide will give you. I think it depends, because I like talking about the mitochondrial optimizing peptides. I think MOTS-C.
That was my next question. So.
Yeah, I think MOTS-C and 5-amino for people who are metabolically deranged is amazing. In fact, if you give a person who has 50 pounds of body fat to lose, men or woman, a healthy bolus of MOTS-C, they will feel energized like a lean person does. Because I always tell people this all the time. I mean, you guys are doctors and you guys probably don't even think about this, but like obese people are in constant agony. They're essentially in fight or flight, metabolically at all times. I mean, they're cytokines, there's just storms of inflammasomes. I mean, they feel like absolute dog shit. And so it's like, if you can give them a nice, again, and they can afford it, it is expensive, unfortunately, but you can get them on MOTS-C and get them on a proper exercise program, combined with a 5-amino and obviously metformin, dihydroberberin, living insulin control, they're going to lose fat very quickly. Because MOTS-C is turning on all the machinery that has been deactivated because of their obesity. So that's a really, really good drug for obese people. Lean, muscular people, it's a weird one because like I don't feel shit with MOTS-C. Actually, it makes me stay awake. But I don't get any kind of like energetic benefit, or I don't feel leaner, or there's no really enhanced thermogenesis. It does wire me. But then I do know some other people that are muscular and lean and they feel amazing. And so it's more like brain clarity. So I think it's kind of like a flip a coin for people that are lean, but for metabolically deranged people, MOTS-C is an amazing drug. And like I said,
what dose?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What dose would you use?
Oh, that is a good question. It's in my book. Off the top of my head right now, I don't know, but if you email me, I'll send it to you. But there's like 4 or 5 different dosing protocols, but you're going to have to use the heavier the person, the higher the dose for MOTS-C, and it is expensive, but it does work really well.
And we've used about 3/10 to 5/10 of a cc every 3rd day.
Yeah. And you do it like 10 days in a row.
Day.
Yeah.
I've seen it every 5th day.
Well, there's other dosing protocols. Like I was talking to a physician the other day about it, and he said he was having amazing results by doing it every other week, doing it daily every other week, but like half that dose.
So can you combine something like that with the GLPs at all, or CaloCurve? Or?
I mean, yeah. So look, that's a great question, by the way. In truth, yes, but it's all relative to that individual's commitment to a plan. I mean, again, I always tell people this, like, if you're not committed to fasting or living insulin controlled and you're doing a GLP, you're literally, as that guy was saying, you're a freaking ambulance visit awaiting. Okay. Because of, again, the gastroparesis, the paralysis, like you said, the stuff that's happening with the gallbladder. I mean, all of those things are true. So if you're a person who's fully committed to living healthy, living insulin controlled, and again, I always talk about fasting. I know most of you guys are good with fasting. I mean, the autophagy and the hormetic effect of fasting, there's nothing like it. I mean, if you can, this is a very true statement. If you can fast 18 to 20 hours once a week for the rest of your life, you will live longer than the average person. If you can do it twice, you will live longer than 95% of humans. And again, it's just due to the cellular fumigation that you're giving your body by doing it. Now, obviously, if you're going to fast every other day, like I do, you're insane, but you're not going to have any, you're not going to have any inflammation.
Throw in a little testosterone with that too. That's right.
Well, that's actually another good question to that point. Because so, like, yes, but are they hormonally optimized? Because that's the one thing that I tell people all the time with peptides is like, yeah, you read about it, you watched this webinar, you read my book, you listened to you guys talk at AMMG or whatever, but you're not hormonally optimized, and you're in your mid-40s, and you're obviously not fat, but you're not conditioned, athletic, or you're not training regularly, and you jump into peptides, you're not going to get the same effect as someone who is hormonally optimized. And that's why I think, that's the advantage that you guys have when you're talking to your patients, that like, hey, peptides are great, but let's work on getting your hormones optimized and balanced first. And I think a lot of people miss that. And that's when a lot of people, and again, doctors are to blame for the most part, but a lot of people will come to me and say, dude, I listened to your podcast, I read your book, I love your stuff, I'm on your email list, but like, I used ipamorelin for 2 months and I got nothing. And then I'll be like, what are you talking about? How is that possible? And then they'll be like, oh, well, it was a lozenge or, some other stupid shit.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, dude, like, but that's the thing is like lack of education.
So when we lay out our plan, like I said, I've been doing this long enough. So I have one line that stops them all. And they'll either do it or not. And the line is, this is a Judge Judy deal. It's a yes or a no. You're either going to do it or not. Not 80%, not 90%, not 95%. We're either doing it or we're not doing it. And then that's, that weeds out the riffraff.
It does. Yeah. I think, Dr. Rob, I see you in the background. What's going on, dude? How are you, man? I love peptides. I've been using them. I mean, I tell people this, it's a marvel for even myself, but I've been using them since 2004. I started using ipamorelin when they were selling, and I think I remember one of you guys, the last time we were talking, was like, oh yeah, I remember them, Southern Research Company, in 2004. So I've been using peptides for 20 years, and it's weird how when drugs first come into the marketplace, how they always work better. And then over time, it's like the active ingredient gets watered down and the middle people get involved and stuff like that. But like, I remember in the very beginning of the days of using ipamorelin, and I was just marveling. I mean, I'd been on testosterone for 3 or 4 years, and I was learning everything I could about that stuff. And I remember I first started using ipamorelin, and it was like magic. It was like, what the hell is going on? I started sleeping better. I lost body fat. I got thicker. My muscles became more dense because I was obviously on therapeutic testosterone. And then, they're still great, but I just don't notice the same effects now Maybe it was because I had, no receptor sensitivity to it or whatever, but I don't know. I've talked to so many people about drugs and peptides and stuff, and they all say, oh yeah, that's just the way the world works. As more and more people find out about them, they start degrading the quality so they can make more money. I don't know if that's true, but there's some logic into that.
And what about the future of like peptides? Where are we going with this? Because the FDA doesn't want this. They don't want bioidentical hormones. They don't want nothing.
I know. Well, I was just going to tell you guys to start the show off tonight. Rick Collins. I know a lot of you guys know Rick. He's now an attorney to a lot of you guys, but he sent me a message tonight and tagged me on Instagram. They're about to outlaw bioidenticals in New York, literally. Like, that's it. Like, they're, because they already have an issue with like telemedicine. I mean, a lot of people are still using telemedicine. I'm sure a lot of you guys have patients in New York, but it's technically not legal. Well, it's legal, but then you can't send the drugs across state borders, or, there's all these compound pharmacy regulations. But I mean, according to him, what he was sharing today, and this is from today, they're basically ending it. It's done. Like, no New York prescribing physician will be able to prescribe anything that's not, mandated by the FDA. And so testosterone is off the table. And as you guys know, they have supposedly it's through the end of December with, telemedicine got the stay. And it was, the truth about this was that it was really granted a stay because of transgender nonsense. I mean, don't get me going on that, but like, they don't want to limit that. And so that's why they've extended it. But, Rick has been very, very vocal about this. And he said that he thinks that by the end of this year, it's not going to happen. So, I mean, look, I won't get into politics or any of that bullshit, but the truth is that there will always be a supply when there's a demand. The genie's not going back in the bottle on peptides. You asked the new frontier. I know a lot of you guys know this. The new frontier is bioregulators. I mean, you guys all know Dr. James Lavelle. I mean, like, we're not friends, but we're not enemies. But, I know he's working on some, liposomal oral formulation technologies that are going to knock the socks off the market with bioregulators. I mean, look, 80% of people, these are the statistical facts, 80% of people will not inject. It's just not going to happen. They're afraid of needles, tyrannophobia, craziest word ever. They won't inject themselves. So the barrier of entry is massive to create a product that has bioavailability from oral, absorption standpoint. And supposedly the technology is coming. They've got cyclodextrin and they're removing carbon atoms and all this stuff. And, the patents are out there.
Define a bioregulator just so we know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So basically a bioregulator is a drug/supplement. Like the grass in the FDA in North America is regulated as a supplement. They're on Amazon now, which is insane. It's a drug from Russia. Russia owns all the patents. Dr. Victor Kavinson, the guy who just died literally a month ago, was the father of bioregulators. And they created all these oral formulations. They're essentially, they're like a combination of a peptide protein chain. And how they differentiate from peptides is they are literally tissue specific and non-toxic. So, I mean, peptides are similar, right? I mean, obviously, we're not talking about Rockefeller petroleum distillate medications that the FDA and Big Pharma likes to give us. But at the end of the day, these things are literally tissue specific. I don't have it in front of me right now. I usually carry the box, but they have a prostate bioregulator that is called Blvd. And an aging man can take a 10-day course of supplements. It's like, I think it's 2 a day. It's dirt cheap. It's like $45. And it is clinically proven. They have massive studies going back to the 40s. And that's how crazy this is. These were all walled off during the Cold War. But they have in Russia studies going back to the 40s where it will literally naturally suppress the size of the prostate gland. Okay. Just as they have a bioregulator for almost every organ system. Now, the problem that we have in the world right now is since Kavinson died, they've always controlled the supply and the demand of it. The patents would not let the bioregulators outside of Russia. And then with this Ukrainian-Russian war, and this is speculation on my part because no one really knows, but ever since the Russian-Ukrainian war in 2022, the borders dropped on bioregulators and you started seeing them on Amazon. And now there's like 6 companies in the United States. There's Qui Supplements. There's like 4 or 5 other ones they're selling these people direct to direct to your door, and they're through GRAS regulations, they're legal. They're considered supplements. So that, the FDA hasn't even looked into them yet because they're so new. They're nouveau. They don't really understand them. They know they're all locked up in Russian patents, but since they're on the market and Amazon selling them, it's kind of, again, the same thing. Genie's out of the bottle, but they have some profound ones. If you go to my website, jcampbell.com, and you search bioregulators, we've written like 5 articles on the most used, the most widely available. Phil Mikens has been on my podcast now twice, and his company, which is Profound Health Anti-Aging Systems, the offshore pharmacy. I think you guys know who that guy is. He goes to most of the medical conferences, and he's a pretty smart speaker, nutrition scientist. He talks about these things at a very high level. And, again, they've been in Russia since the 40s. So my guess is between James Lavell's new patent technology coming on peptides that'll be oral, and then the bioregulators, the game's going to shift dramatically in the next 2 years. The biggest issue with bioregulators right now is since Cavenson died, his son, this always happens, right? The royal sperm has inherited the empire, and he is supposedly wanting to sell to everyone, whereas Cavenson and the Russian, whatever the medical establishment in Russia always kept them locked in Russia. And so now what is the big game? Because these people reach out to me for consultation, is like, how can we mass produce and scale bioregulators in the USA, in the EU, and of course in mainland China. So that's the big deal right now. So like they're in negotiations on how they can actually become a distributor. So I think that in the next 2 years, the peptide bioregulator space is going to go 10x. I really do think that. I think that the FDA shutting down peptides clinically through compound pharmacies would be, it's like trying to suppress crypto. In fact, I say that peptides and bioregulators are crypto for medicine. It's like this giant deregulated, decentralized medical platform, but it's, again, healing because it actually addresses and treats the root cause. It isn't band-aiding the symptoms. So they can lock down peptides to you guys, from a compound pharmacy standpoint. And look, I think you guys know this, and a lot of you guys know Sean Norian, the owner of Empower. He's a good friend of mine. I mean, they're suing the FDA. There's a lot of compounders that are suing the FDA right now. So if you're going to sue the FDA, you better have resources and knowledge and awareness behind you. But they're confident, that they have enough data and studies to say, hey, this is ridiculous. Why are you guys regulating this? So if you talk to smart money attorneys, they're going to tell you that it's going to be a 3 to 5 year war for the FDA to actually clinically suppress, if not completely regulate, all peptides. And they're not going to get rid of peptides that they have FDA approval on, but they want the compounders to stop making what I call, generic or degenerated versions of the retail formats, right? So it's like right now, most of the compounders are selling GLP-1s that are generics. And if you're Pfizer or any of the major pharmaceutical companies, and you've spent 600 to 800 million going through 3 stages of trials to bring your product public, you don't want those guys selling a denatured version of the product. Keith Nichols has been on my podcast or the Doctors Roundtable like 3 times, reading it specifically on how they violate the patent and how doctors that are writing scripts for generic GLPs are breaking the law, as it's written. Again, they're not enforcing it.
So what's going to happen to those? Those are the one you think they're going to cut it, right?
Well, it's a really good question. If you put a gun to my head, I would tell you that they want all peptides that are effective off the table until they can make them FDA approved, or, if there's any.
But they say because of the shortage, they're keeping it going. Is that true?
I don't know. That's a great question. So my comment to that would be, is that the truth, or is it more that they lack the ability to enforce at a individual compound pharmacy level? Because there's so many compound pharmacies. And according to Rick Collins, who's very smart and knowledgeable in these matters, it's the same thing with, anabolic steroids, right? When they regulated anabolic steroids in 1992 or 1993, whatever the fuck it was, I don't remember. The underground market just exploded. So his take is if they do this with peptides, that there will be an alternative market that will come out, and it won't be like physicians won't be able to find that alternative market, and that alternative market will actually effectively not be illegal. It may be gray, but something will fulfill again the supply chain, because at the end of the day, guys, we all know that peptides work. There's no disputing that. They can shut it down, but it's not like people aren't going to find a way. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it, is that they'll find a way. And, if James Lavelle is right and the bioregulator people are right, it won't matter, because they'll create peptides that'll become oral supplements. And what's the FDA going to do about that? How are they going to stop that?
Well, there's always a way. So,
right.
Okay. Well, it's getting late during your way. Do you have any final thoughts for us, Jay?
No, I'm just grateful to be able to talk to you guys. I appreciate all of you guys.
We appreciate your expertise. Highly scientific, approach to everything. And with a little bit of a rebel on the side.
Oh yeah, there's no medical license. Every day, Keith Nichols will always say to me, Jay, I just hope they don't knock down your doors with 5, black coat agents at some point, because God knows you've said enough.
Yeah, didn't the Wall Street Journal try to? The
Wall Street Journal did an article on me. Yeah, absolutely. They're saying, a biohacker or influencer or whatever, Jay Campbell is blah 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 promoting Limitless or whatever. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't own and I'm not selling drugs illicitly. I do promote them, obviously, and I talk about them. But again, it's like cryptocurrency. That's really what this is. It's an alternative form of healing that people can take ownership. I still recommend people go to doctors. I don't tell people to not get and work with a physician to do this kind of stuff, but obviously a lot of people out there are just going to take matters into their own hand. Exactly. Hoorah!
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's it.
Thanks a lot. I'll get in touch with you about the calo curve, because
for sure I'll see you in AMMG. I'm sorry.
Can you share your information?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can just reach out to me at jay@jcampbell.com. That's my email. And you can find me on my website, jcampbell.com. And I'm on social media at jcampbell333.
I'm not good with emails and all that. Can you have my text and text me?
No, because so many people text me every day. But if you email me, I promise I'll return your call. I'll return your email.
Okay.
And he's good on his word, because we go.
Yeah,
back.
no, anybody email me. If you guys email me and say, hey, you watched tonight, I'll send you all the books. I send you a link to all the books. If you guys want, my Peptides Demystified course is an amazing course. I'm happy to give you guys a 50% off coupon for that course. And it's not expensive anyway. It's $299. So you can get it for $150. But just email me and say, hey, I'd be interested. We have a whole big packet of free stuff that I'll send out to you. And if there's anything else that you want, just email me and I'm happy to respond.
And he's better at promoting than I am, because I have a peptide course too, but but nobody knows about it.
Well, let's talk about that. Maybe we can promote that.
Okay.
Together.
Well, I don't want to step on you, but I have a hormone course too. So,
well, we should definitely have a conversation about that, because I think it's important to talk about that.
I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah,
Jay,
sure.
great as always. Thank you so much. And you always
thank all of you guys for watching tonight.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate all of you guys.
Okay, everybody,
Rob,
thank you for being on.
Yep.
Jay, do you think that this will pass YouTube if we put it on YouTube, or is that we're going to get another strike?
I do not think if you put this on YouTube, it will last. But you have my express permission to put it on YouTube.
Okay, so we always have aosrd.org/webinars. That's our where we put all our videos. So it'll be on there. Next week we have David Silva. He's a financial analyst for physicians. So he's going to talk about your money, practice management, how to protect yourself, all that stuff none of us want to deal with. But I think it's important, as the economy continues to falter, who the bad guys are, and so we need to protect ourselves. So that's next week. And please bring one friend. We'll double our census. We're on the A4M platform now. So they've been a big help to us. AMMG, April 4th, 10th to 14th. I'm giving three talks.
Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome.
I have my series on nearly everything we learned about fill in the blank. I'm doing testosterone this time in medical school was wrong, and also
awesome.
nearly everything we learned about the thyroid in medical school was wrong. So those are two of my talks.
That's a fact, by the way. That's the one thing women are butchered on is the thyroid. My God,
right?
It's insane.
And then Saturday morning I'm doing a separate one just on Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So
I saw that too. Yeah. So I'll be at all your lectures.
all right, I'm going to make sure you have tomatoes and John, how you doing?
What's up, John?
So John's my right hand man here.
Yeah, I know the beard's looking better than ever.
You notice who my left and right hand. You notice a certain characteristic.
The best beards ever, man.
Yeah,
for sure. What's up, John? How you doing, brother?
You're muted, John.
I think he's off mute now. Yeah, I can't hear him.
Yeah, John, you're muted.
Yeah. Peace, man. Reach out to me. Email me, dude.
Okay. All right, Jay. Thank you so much,
guys. Love all you guys. Have a great night. Peace.
I'm sorry if I was a little distracted. We're having some problems in the building here, so I've been so I do apologize for that.
No, everything's great. I appreciate you guys. We'll talk soon. I'm sure I'll be on.
All right. So Jay, thank you so much. And we'll be in touch. Okay.
Take care, guys. Bye bye.
Right.
Good night.
Okay.
Bye bye.
You're all, brother. Thank you.